Happy Sunday, everybody. This is Trading with Artisan Will, and I will be going over my weekly watch list for the week of May 19th. And in case you haven't been keeping up with the markets, we are less than 3% away from all-time highs, and this move took less than 2 months to happen. The reason for this surge in prices is a culmination of a lot of factors, but in my opinion, the biggest thing is because it's a kind of a return to normalcy. So there was a lot of fears with tariffs and how that would affect the economy as well as the growth of companies, but because we're actually having negotiations and things are actually starting to settle, things are returning to normal. And yes, I know we're not completely out of the woods because we can easily gap down overnight on some type of headline, causing extreme volatility. So it's always important to remember to stay on your toes. And my last thought before we jump into the watch list is that I know there's a lot of people out there thinking that we're due for a pullback and it's going to be aggressive and people are way overextended. But the thing you have to remember is at the end of the day, nobody can really predict the market. We just look at probabilities, and yes, things are riskier to be going long, but oftentimes what happens is when the majority of people think a stock or the market can't keep going up, it often tends to do the exact opposite. With that in mind, let's jump right into it. With this analysis and these levels, they are still relevant, especially if we get a pullback. The first is going to be Carvana, as we just recently broke the local high of around 293, and we're actually looking to hold this level as well. If you look at the weekly time frame, it's really clean in terms of looking at the breakout here. Then when you go down to the daily, we actually had a gap fill from 267 to 280. We had very clean price action in the sense that we gap filled, retested the gap, built new support, and rebounded from there. And we didn't have some crazy gap up past this 293 level. We actually closed just shy of it and then finally broke out. And then the last 2 trading days of the previous week, it looks like we're starting to test this level and we're trying to establish new support and keeping this upward trend continuing. So if we're able to break this local high of 311, that's where I would look to get into this June 20th 330 call. And the targets, what I'm looking for is likely honestly going to be near this all-time high area at around 375. I think Carvana has started to pick up a lot of momentum here, especially as it's starting to ramp up way extended past the EMAs here. And I think this 293 level was very key in terms of breaking. Of course, because things are really extended, what we could easily see happen is some type of retest of this gap level again before we actually start testing this 311 level and then eventually finally actually breaking out and continuing this trend. The second is going to be Palantir. I'm looking at the June 20th 135 call. Looks very eerily similar to Carvana, except this local high level of around 124, 125 is actually the all-time high that was made in February. But it's the very similar look in the terms of we tested this level cleanly and we actually broke past it on the previous week candle close. And when you go down to the daily here, it looks like it's trying to establish support above that all-time high level at around 125. So that's what we saw in the last 2 trading days of the previous week. Same thing as Carvana here, except Palantir does look like it has a little more strength as well. The other thing to note is looking at the monthly chart, this looks like a really clean breakout and it looks like it's primed for more continuation to the upside. And when you go down to the 4-hour time frame here, it literally looks like it's barcoding for the past couple days. So I'm looking for a really strong push past this 130 level. I want to target past this wick. The thing is that it's probably going to be a little bit too extended if you're waiting for the trigger off of this 133. What I would look for is an hourly close above this 130 level with high volume to confirm that this breakout is actually continuing. And of course, we have to talk about crypto. On Sunday, we did try breaking out past this 105, 106K level, but we got rejected pretty hard. Regardless of that, we're still in a very tight range, going from around 100,000 all the way up to 106,000. I think there's likely going to have to be a catalyst for this to actually finally break out, but you can't deny the fact that buyers are very strong here. Sellers have tried to sell us past under this ATMA level, but we have refused to close below it. This tells you in an uptrend when we're holding these EMAs that we're likely going to continue in that trend that it's going. And in this case, it's going to be towards the upward price levels, especially when we're testing against this all-time high level. I think it's pretty primed for a break relatively soon, either this week or the next, to test new highs, especially since on the weekly here, I know the candle closes in 4 hours as I'm recording this, but it does potentially look like a flag up here. So we do want to see some crypto exposure, if you're not buying crypto itself. The two names I'm looking at are IBIT and Mara. IBIT is obviously the Bitcoin fund, and I'm looking at the June 20th 60 call. It's kind of mirroring the weekly candle here on Bitcoin here, where the May 12th candle closed. It's kind of like a flag, and it's just shy of this little resistance level here. If we go down to the daily time frame, we're actually seeing this nice consolidation right at this 59 level. And if we draw this little consolidation zone here, looks very, very nice and wants to break above. I would want to see a strong break above 59.75 and likely hold above 60 to be confirming that this will continue upwards. And obviously, the reason why we draw this structure is because it could easily consolidate more and bounce and tighten more before it actually makes that breakout that we want to see happen. And what's probably an even better chart is going to be Mara. Mara is a crypto miner stock. I'm looking at either the June 20th 18 or the 20 call. The 20 call has a lot more open interest, but of course it's significantly cheaper, so it makes sense that people probably are holding more contracts. Nevertheless, this setup looks really, really good as it's tightening and consolidating really well under this 16.4 resistance level, which was made from these resistance points before the stock sold off. As we see this consolidation under this key level, when this breaks, it's likely going to be a very explosive move. So what I'm looking for on Mara is likely a hourly close above the 16.4 level. If we go down to the hourly time frame, you'll see that we haven't actually had a successful hourly candle close above this level. This tells you it's a very, very strong resistance key point that you need to keep an eye on. And once we are able to get that close, likely with heavy volume, that will give you the confirmation that the breakout will be sustained. And second to last, which is kind of like a crypto exposure as well, is going to be Robinhood here. This is on the hourly time frame as well. We're consolidating in this really nice intra flag. We could very easily, of course, bounce down lower to this range and then tighten more before we actually break out. But it looks like it's primed for a continuation of this trend. If we go up to the daily time frame here, what you'll see is we broke past this 55 resistance point that was made off of this March 3rd candle, and we're able to actually hold this. We're not getting rejected. We actually tested the EMA here, which tells you there's a lot of strength. This is going to continue trending. I want to see a break above this 63.78 level to take the June 20th 65 call. Keep in mind, all-time highs is really, really close here. The all-time high is around 66.9. Looks primed to break this and continue forward, especially when we get up to the weekly time frame. Yes, we are a bit extended. So in the other case scenario, we could easily see a retest of this 55 level, which was broken on the May 5th candle. We could easily see a retest of that level before actually continuing higher and then continuing this trend. This actually might be more ideal because as we consolidate and retest this level, it's allowing the EMAs to catch up, and we'll be able to use that indicator as a bounce point for the trend to continue higher. And last but not least is going to be Quantum, which is QBTS. So we just broke past this flag on the weekly time frame. We just had earnings too, which is a really good sign. We got that out of the way. We're breaking out on high volume too. I really, really think Quantum can continue forward, especially when it has so much strength here. If you go up to the monthly time frame here, the all-time highs is around 13.27, and we're starting to poke out of this range and actually looks like we want to test that. So I'm looking at the June 20th 15 call or the July 18th 13 call. The reason why I'm looking at the July 18th is one, I'm already in the Junes, but also two, this is the monthly time frame. So that means this move will likely take a while. And because we don't know, obviously, we want to buy ourselves some time just in case the move does take a little longer than anticipated. All right, and I do have a few that are still on watch, but some of the contracts are either too expensive because they have earnings coming up, or they're just really, really extended in my opinion. The first is going to be CrowdStrike. We're seeing a lot of consolidation in this gap fill zone from around 430 all the way up to 442 and really struggling to break past this level and continue upwards, but it looks really nice on the larger time frames, which makes sense because it kind of seems like it's primed for a earnings run up, as earnings is on June 3rd, the Tuesday. So what I really want to see is a break past this 450 451 level to break this trend line on the weekly time frame and then continue to new all-time highs. But of course, because earnings is coming up so soon, the contracts are really juiced with IV. They're very expensive. The next name is going to be V, which is Visa. It actually looks really, really good and looks similar to the Carvana and Palantir setups that we are looking at, where we're pushing up against this previous resistance. In this case, we're looking at the 365 level here. We actually printed a really bullish hammer on the weekly time frame with heavy volume, which likely tells you that this move is going to continue higher. But it does look really extended, and I would love to see a pullback likely to around this 358 level on this candle where we had this kind of a range. And if we're able to get some type of pit stop at around 360, let things tighten up before we finally break it and then continue higher, I would look to see some type of movement there. The next name is going to be Airbnb. Airbnb just recently broke this 135 level, and we're consolidating pretty well here and tightening up. This is really interesting, even though it's a little bit extended here. I would love to see a retest of this 132, maybe even 135, reestablish that as new support before we continue higher to test potentially the 150 levels. The next name is going to be Dash. I actually really like this one because this is on the weekly. Very similar to CrowdStrike, except earnings is in July, so there's a lot of time for this move to start actually baking. What you'll see is that CrowdStrike is riding against this trend line on the weekly, and the very same thing is what you're seeing on DoorDash here. We actually had a nice little gap, we finished it. Now it looks like we want to probably consolidate a bit and actually kind of chop around the zone before we actually break. I'm looking for a break over this 207 level to really get a good breakout and actually enter this trade. And then the next name is going to be Spotify. This is Spotify on the weekly time frame. We actually just had 3 inside weeks here, and we finally had a volume week where we closed above the 652 level, which is the all-time highs. So I think this is really primed to continue forward, especially since we got that crazy earnings reaction and we got bought back up instantaneously. But again, this name is a monster. The contracts are super expensive. Might not necessarily be worth the risk in terms of that type of investment. And lastly is going to be Uber. We saw this nice hourly breakout of this flag, and we retested this new level of around 91.92. Uber looks really good for a continuation, especially when you look on the weekly time frame. We had a nice flag, and then we broke past this 86 level that was made in October. The biggest point is I like to see this candle here as just noise, especially since we got rejected so hard. The bigger level, I would argue, is around this 82 level, and it's confirmed because we rejected it once here. And even though we broke past this level on the April 28th weekly candle, we consolidated and then retested it on these next 2 subsequent weekly candles. In all honesty, with looking at how Bitcoin has rejected the 106 level, and we got that moody downgrade of US debt Friday afternoon, I would not be surprised if this week is a pullback / taking profit type of week, which is actually a good thing because these type of explosive moves are not sustainable. It's really good if we do get that retest of previous levels so that we can find better entries for our longs. But I really do think it's foolish to call that this is going to be a complete reversal back to new lows. We likely do not see that happen here. That's it for this week. Thanks for going over my weekly watch list with me. Keep an eye out for trade reviews and more educational videos. Other than that, I will see you guys next week.